Hello, good morning, and happy Tuesday. Today is a good day. I hope everybody had a great day yesterday, bringing a sense of intention and creativity to your day. I know I did. It was a wonderful day full of connection and personal growth and exercise and rest, and just a good day. So I hope all of you are experiencing something similar and on your own unique paths of growth and development during this unique time of quarantine, and that we all continue to cultivate the space between the stimulus and the response, and we keep cultivating our self-awareness, our creative imagination, our independent will, and most recently, in line with our most recent conversation, the cultivation of our conscience, our sense of right and wrong, and how we guide our lives. So I see Darlene is on. Good morning, Darlene. And I see Peter is on. Good morning, Peter. So here we are today on this Tuesday. I'd like to explore this one of the natural laws, just kind of natural laws that just exist in nature, and that is of gestation. Just recap for those of you that may have be new to this conversation on conscience. We're just exploring natural laws and how they inform our sense of right and wrong, and the embodiment of those natural laws, those universal principles, into our character structures, and eventually those natural laws, when we really take them in and embody them, they form virtues, human virtues, when we embody natural laws. That's been my experience. And so we talked about a little bit yesterday about the natural law of vibration and attraction, relativity. Things are contextual. And we talked about cause and effect, that the laws of physics aren't just laws that happen in the physical world, where there's an action with throwing a ball and then there's a reaction. It also happens it crosses domains, happens at the interpersonal level, intrapersonal level. And then we talked about polarity. So this notion that harmony is the dynamic balance of opposites, and how that can kind of, at least I shared my story, like in my mind, opposites were opposites. They were things I just kept away from each other. I saw them years ago. I saw them as things that were in conflict, not complementary. I certainly didn't have that mental frame. And as I started to open up to that, and I started to study and then reflect back on many of the principles I knew to be true, that indeed, it's the balance of opposites that keeps harmony. We talked about the Stoic philosophy of anakalluthia, that no virtue is a virtue by itself. All virtues have a counterbalancing virtue, and I'll share some reflections on that in future mornings. My commitment is to hold these morning meditations and this conversation open through April, and we'll get to into April, and we'll see if we continue them through May. But it's been a great journey, and I read some. I was listening to an audiobook. One of my new practices is to work out while listening to an audiobook. So I'm moving and learning, and it's been really it's been a brand new practice for me. And one of the things that the author said in this book that I was listening to yesterday was, it was a quote from Helen Keller. It said, life is a daring adventure. That was great. Life is a daring adventure, and it talked about, and the author went on to say, life is about learning. Life is about learning, and learning, and in learning is the adventure. Because in some ways, when we commit to learning, we open to learning, going beyond what we already know. We are, by the very act of learning, we are stepping into the unknown, and we're committing to be a beginner. And that can be both an exciting and a vulnerable space to be a beginner. And so I just thought about that, how, and I'd never put those two together, that, life is about learning, and learning is an adventure, a departure from the known world, and the courage to step into the unknown world. And here we are, as an entire globe. We're, whether we were ready for it or not, we are on this adventure of learning. How do we communicate? How do we coordinate? How do we thrive? How do we survive in this reality of pandemic and this other organism out there that is doing its thing and throwing off our balance. So I'm sure it's not the last virus or microorganism to surface. So we're all on this learning curve. How are we going to coordinate in this new reality? And so we're on an adventure. That's how I'm holding it. So gestation. I wrote down some thoughts here on gestation. And how, that this, in the most practical terms, we all know this. We all are here because of gestation, because of this, because in the case of pregnancy, there's a 9-month waiting period where there's this inner growth and transformation before this, before a baby's born. So we all have spent roughly 9 months. That's how we started our lives in this time of gestation, and then after that was complete, we were born. This happens with, we see this in nature with a butterfly. Caterpillar, consumes nourishment, and then it cocoons, and then it transforms. It literally liquefies, transforms its body, and there's a gestation period while it's in the cocoon. And then during that gestation period, there's a transformation, and then there's a butterfly. We see this in the seasons, how summer starts to yield to fall and winter. And in winter, it can seem very quiet and like almost nothing's moving, at least in the natural world. Everything's, there isn't a lot of greenery and buds shooting out or any. And then winter slowly, yields into spring and a new summer. And so we see these gestation periods, these cycles throughout life. We can see that in our personal growth as well. There are times of where we're growing and expanding and building our capacity, and then there are times where life starts to contract, and either we do that voluntarily because we just feel like, it's time for me to, withdraw in for a while, or retreat, go on retreat or sabbatical. And then there's a time where we feel like, hey, we're complete with that. It's time to step into expansion again. So we see that in our own rhythms. Sometimes life does it for us. We've been expanding and expanding and expanding, and then there's a natural personal cocooning, and where we have to gather ourselves, reorganize ourselves. And that kind of talks a little bit about tomorrow's topic, which is transmutation. This happens in all economies in the world. There are times, there are bull markets where there's a growth in the economy, and then eventually that the economy has to gather itself in a recession, and all those inefficiencies, all those products and services that really weren't creating a lot of value or were not developed in a strong way need to be fall off or burn off, like the burning of the forest floor. And the strong companies, they weather the storm, and then the next growth cycle starts. So we see these cycles in even our economic growth of expansion and contraction. And I also thought, like, we're talking about independent will, and we were talking about, the planning process, how the creative process for us human beings is we create it first. We create the first in our imagination, and then we start to bring it into the world through that mental planning process, from imagination into planning it in our mind, and then we relive it again in reality. So, years ago, in my earliest leadership training, the phrase that comes back is that all things are created twice when it comes to humans. There's first the mental and creative creation in our mind's eye, and then from there it's the actual physical creation. And so during that time where we're imagining, we're mulling, doing that artist mulling, and we're planning, to the outside world doesn't seem like there's a lot going on. There's no product, there's no service, there's no finished work of art, and so in that gestation period, so much is changing. So much is changing during that gestation period, and to really, what I've learned to do is to really honor that time where there's not a lot of external change, but a tremendous amount is changing internally. And to legitimize that, to honor that, to enjoy the internal change, which naturally, if cultivated and validated, naturally starts to move us into the external change. And so, that's a wonderful thing, to be able to enjoy the internal change that we recognize, and maybe a few close friends recognize, and then to just watch that naturally start to move into the outside world where the rest of the world sees the change. And if we go back to the artist's way in the creative process, in Julia Cameron's frame, art is process, not final form. And that's a powerful statement, and I hold it as true, and it's very counterculture in my experience, because our culture rewards finished products, achievement, and in my experience, my listening, and that's the reward is the accomplishment, and in that creativity. The reward is in those positive mental emotional states that we hold, and I would even say that during those gestation periods, those times of waiting, and where there's internal change and there's less external change. And there's that's we talked about in the natural world, the example of the caterpillar, where it goes from a caterpillar and then it actually forms a cocoon, transforms in the cocoon, and then we see the transformation when it finally emerges from the cocoon into a butterfly. Well, I think that's a great metaphor because it's so concrete. I mean, we see the caterpillar, we can actually watch the cocoon be formed and just hanging there, nothing happening for days, and then all of a sudden this butterfly comes out. That can be a great concrete metaphor for some of those more invisible changes that we go through as human beings or that exist in nature, if we can see that in the very concrete transformation of a butterfly. And so this stage, this intermediate stage, this gestational stage of cocooning, is something we can hold for ourselves, is that we go through cocooning stages at a personal level, and we go through cocooning stages interpersonally in our relationships, where there's not a lot going on in terms of the changing of the relationship, but if we're all doing our work, we're on our true path, that'll eventually yield itself into something that's more life-giving. And in some ways, I mean, what I see is that, as a culture right now, we are, we're in almost as an entire globe, we're in a cocooning stage, a gestation stage. And it can be uncomfortable if we haven't really understood, embodied, and accepted this natural cycle of gestation, and see it and really hold it as an important part of the change process. We don't even have language for it. That can make it very uncomfortable. Once we can have understanding, we have positive experience, and we have language for what we're experiencing, that can help us navigate this time. And so, I really hold that we're all in this cocooning gestation stage as we're quarantined. And if we can understand that, we can have a positive frame for that as a time for internal growth and internal change, while there is very little external change. It can really bring us into a positive mental, emotional state, and help us to really take advantage of the time and prepare us for when we become more connected again, when this gestation stage is over, and it is birthed, if you will, into more social connection. So gestation, having a positive frame for that, and it really ties into those somatic concepts of changing from the inside out, from the somatic point of view. If we look from the body point of view, we look at somebody from the outside in, from their physical body, we can say, oh, they haven't really changed a lot. But if we access the somatic point of view, we can become aware of a tremendous amount of change is happening. And when we change from the inside out, and really honor those gestation periods of that internal change, in my experience is those changes are much more lasting and enduring than when we just make an external change to hit some metric. If we take time to really change at a deep level internally, and then that will naturally yield itself to external measurable changes. The reason, my sense and my experience of why those changes are so enduring, that are forged from that internal change, is because we have become one to the enjoyment of the process as our main prize, not the measurable change. The measurable change happens, and it can be nice to see the achievement, but because our true prize is the enjoyment of the process, our new process, that's why it's enduring, because we get that sense of satisfaction moment by moment as we're engaged in that process, versus the fleeting enjoyment of achievement, and then it passes. So, some reflections there. There was a book that I read years ago when I was first exploring this whole world of coaching, and had a number of people recommend books to me, and there's one in particular that I think is really fitting for the time we're in now, and that is the book Mastery by George Leonard. And in that book, he had some great titles for his chapters with the concepts, but one of them was America's War with Mastery. And, so I thought it was a really, caught my attention. Interesting what his thoughts there. And then the other one that was quite provocative title, and it was provocative because it was pushing against cultural norms on achievement. And this one, this chapter that stays with me to this day is the chapter of loving the plateau. Just think about that. Just think of our culture of achievement and recognition and advancement, and then somebody writes a book that has a chapter that says loving the plateau. And I'll just give a little bit of the gist of what he was trying to share, is that really what I understood out of that was that there's a point at which when we're on a true path, and we've accepted, we're on our true path, we've accepted the circumstances of our life, and we've faced into what is, and we have an intention and a direction for our life, and we have committed to a process that we enjoy, that there's just this enjoyment of the process. There's an enjoyment of, we could say, the gestation period of each seemingly ordinary moment along the path to the future change. He gave examples that really resonated with me as a wrestler, as a martial artist, and as someone who's been, committed their life to wellness and fitness. He talked about when loving the plateau, he was talking about martial arts practice in the book, and he said, it's that just loving driving to practice. Loving walking in to the locker room, the enjoyment of getting your training clothes on, of lacing up your shoes, all those seemingly mundane activities, but just loving every little aspect of the process, even though maybe no external major change has shifted. And just loving that process, knowing that while all that is happening, there are changes happening internally that no one externally can measure, but we can feel them. We can feel those changes. And then eventually, when enough internal growth happens, enough gestation happens within us, all of a sudden, this if we took a diagram, all of a sudden this flat line, it looks like nothing's changing. All of a sudden, there's this blip, and we're at this next level. And the world sees this big change, and they celebrate this big change. But what they don't necessarily talk about or celebrate is the 3 to 6 months of inner transformation that led up to this external change. And that's what how I really took his writings on loving the plateau. And it seems more fitting now in our time of quarantine and physical distancing, that to really understand and hold this notion of loving the plateau and bringing attention and validating this internal change seems very fitting, at least. And when I apply that to my own life, that builds all kinds of resilience in me, mentally, emotionally, because I'm sensing the internal changes now in quarantine that I can imagine and believe will produce this new level of external achievement later down the road when this phase has passed. So it's a both and. It's a loving of the process now, and I am strongly connected to how these seeds that I'm cultivating now are going to produce things that I'm going to enjoy in terms of achievement later on. but all grounded in this moment, in these seemingly mundane practices where there's no external measurable change, and enjoying that. Loving the plateau. And that really brings us to this last topic, this notion of mastery. Once we are on a true path that really fits us, we're in a process that is we really enjoy, and we really feel it fits us and it suits us. That's that path of mastery. We have gone beyond the excitement of being a beginner and something being novel. We've moved to an advanced beginner. We've moved to being competent and skilled, and then expert, and then moving to that continuing putting the time and the hours into that virtuoso, into that 10,000 hours of mastery in any particular domain, to where once we're at a mastery level, we have that 10,000 hours of committed practice in whatever our chosen study or path is. We become very creative. We're on the leading creative edge in that domain, whether it's martial art, or it's it's painting, or it's leadership, or it's marketing, or whatever it is. We're at that mastery level where we can stand on that edge between what is known and unknown, and we are creating in the moment and loving the journey, loving the process. And so that's when I've experienced when I can really love the external plateau, because I love the process so much, and I'm so connected into that internal change, and sensing it, feeling it, and knowing it will also eventually unfold into an external change that I can enjoy for that time, and others can see it, celebrate it with me, and potentially once that external change comes, maybe it'll inspire them. And then the last thing I have on this particular topic is, once we really, my experience is once we really embrace this natural law of gestation that just happens in nature, happens within us, interpersonally, intrapersonally, it naturally, once we accept it, it starts to cultivate the human virtues of patience. In other words, patience isn't no longer something we are telling us we should have. Once we really acknowledge and we surrender to this notion of that nature has this gestation period, and we know what our role is during these gestation periods, it cultivates patience, that we can have, that we can start to develop that character quality in ourselves, knowing that change is happening inside without the external reward outside. And so that's been my experience, how embodying the universal natural law of gestation, once fully internalized and accepted, creates the character quality of patience. And so I'm complete on that subject, gestation. And tomorrow we'll explore the next natural law, which is rhythm. And we'll talk about how we can start to cultivate rhythm and understand how rhythm works in the natural world, and then how that can apply to our personal lives. So with that, I just invite us to prepare ourselves for our meditation this morning. So let's first start by checking in with our mood. So just notice what your mood is right now. Like right now, just sharing my mood, I feel excited, I'm expanding, energized. You might be able to figure that out just by listening to me and watching me. Okay, so notice what it is for you. That may not be your mood. Your mood might be sad, might be angry, might be frustrated. You know, again, we're meeting our mood without judgment, without attachment, without resistance. Going back to those 3 parables from many weeks ago. It's information. And we want to meet ourselves as we are and then work from there. And then let's start by relaxing our eyes. Relaxing our eyes. Relaxing our jaw and chin. Relaxing our neck. Bring your shoulders up. Hold that for a moment and then let that go. Shoulders up. And let that go. And then softening your chest, opening your chest. You can imagine that opening up like a book, opening up like a scroll. You can imagine butterfly wings, back to that example on gestation. So that, see, last time you saw a butterfly just gently open those big wings. Create that imagery. Allow that imagery to shift your physical body. And relaxing your diaphragm. Relaxing your belly, softening your belly. Breathing into your belly, breathing into your low back. Bringing your attention to your pelvis and your hips. And so, like your shoulders, we're contract, relax there. So pulling up and in, and release. Good. Pulling up and in, and release. And relaxing your thighs and knees, calves and shins, and feet and toes. And what we're essentially doing, we're creating space within our body, making space for those sensations, those emotions. You're starting to tie in to the wisdom of our bodies. And then let's begin by centering in our length. So centering in your length. So let's find our vertical line from top to bottom. Feel yourself straightening, whether you're standing or you're seated. You're both straightening and settling at the same time. So in other words, we're not lifting up to get taller and creating more of a charge. I'm extending down through my hips and feet as I'm extending up through the crown of my head, and I have this felt sense of relaxation internally. And from this vertical line, you want to feel that from the inside out. You want to feel that somatically. And from here, connect to your vision for the day. What's your vision for today? Yes, we have longer horizons of time, a month from now, 6 months from now, a year from now, 5 years from now, we can go there. But if it resonates with you, maybe just imagine the day. What's your vision for the completion of this day in a satisfying way? Just a short horizon of time, very much within your influence. What's your vision there? What's the day? How's the day going to close? What are you going to feel like at 10 or 11 o'clock or 9 o'clock, whatever time you complete your day? What will you have completed? What's your vision there? Use your imagination. And as you connect to that vision, also feel your body, feel your hips and your feet at the same time connected to the ground. So we're grounding that vision of today. So we're grounding it in our bodies that are going to act, our bodies that actually are going to take the actions that are going to produce that vision. In other words, that vision isn't just going to be something exciting we imagine right now and then it evaporates 30 minutes from now. We're feeling a body that can take actions in alignment with that vision. Let's take a deep breath in to the crown of your head. Pull that breath through your body, and then exhale out through your feet and hands. Then take a deep breath in through your feet and hands. Pull that breath through your body, exhale out through the crown of your head. Then take a deep breath in through the crown of your head. Pull that breath through, exhale out through your feet and hands. Feel yourself centered in your length. Let's extend out. Let's start our width practice today. Let's start with extending to others, and then we'll come slowly to ourselves. So let's first start in this horizontal plane, reaching our arms out, which opens our chest, gives us this body posture of reaching out to others, creates that felt sense in our body. So let's start with extending out to others. Just extending out to others. Maybe extending out to the human family, just extending out to humanity, big, broad. And just notice how that shifts you. Then bring your attention to and extend out to your friends and your family. A little bit different shifting of your attention, extending out to friends and family. And then slowly let's extend out and just bring our attention interpersonally to ourselves. So left hand on your chest, right hand on your belly. And here, as you feel your left hand on your chest, your right hand on your belly, you feel the boundaries of your skin. You feel your clothes resting on the surface of your skin. Bring your attention to your commitment to yourself. Where are your boundaries? What do you say yes to? What do you say no to? What are you willing to negotiate? How are you intentionally cultivating and developing yourself physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually? To live, to love, to learn, to leave a legacy. We could even bring in that imagery from the Artist's Way from a few weeks back, and how are you attending to your inner artist, if you will? So there's a way that we can attend to self and cultivate self, and then slowly open our arms and extend out to our community, our family and friends, while still feeling ourselves, while still attending to ourselves, extending out to our opponents, our enemies, our adversaries, extending love and compassion to them, and extending out to even bigger, out to all of humanity, extending out to nature, just extending those different widths. Let's take a deep breath in through our left hand. Pull that breath through with your attention and your imagination. So breath in, exhale out your right hand. Then take a deep breath in with your right hand. Pull that breath through, exhale out your left hand. And deep breath in through your left hand. And exhale out your right hand. And relaxing your arms down. Take a moment to feel. Feel into your center and your length, centered in your width. Breathe into that. And then let's take a moment to start to shift our attention to our depth. So let's just feel into our back, lean back just a bit, feel your history, all the experiences that have shaped you. Whether your mind labeled them good or bad, you learned something from them. Just feeling those experiences and that wisdom at your back. Feeling your teachers at your back. Ones who initiated you and stayed with you. Ones that just came into your life, taught you something, and then you never saw them again. And what they had to teach you was important. Yeah, feel into your allies, your friends, your family, your lineage, parents and grandparents. You're part of something. And slowly leaning forward, start to bring your attention to the space in front of you. Imagine that space in front of you as your future. And maybe for today, if it resonates with you, maybe just imagine the trajectory of this day. What's your vision for this day? What's possible? Again, how do you want to feel? What is the image going to be at that 9, 10, or 11 o'clock hour when you complete your day? Can you visualize that? Can you feel the emotion you want to feel? What will you have developed in yourself? And slowly just recenter back here. And find that physical balance so that you're balanced between the front space and the back space. In other words, the weight of your body is resting on your bones, resting on your skeletal system. It gives you that felt sense of effortlessness. And just allow that effortlessness in sitting here to be the felt sense of the present moment. The only moment that ever really is. And just really connect to the quality of our attention and our presence in this moment, the present moment, will determine the quality and shape the future and the quality of our presence in the future. Let's bring attention and energy to our right hand, place that below our navel. As we touch here, feel the temperature of our hand, the shape of our hand, touching our belly. It's allowing that sensation of your hand on your belly to help you drop out of the thinking self and drop down into the feeling self, the intuitive body self. Let's take 3 deep breaths here. So a deep breath into your center. And exhale. A deep breath into your felt sense of purpose. And a deep breath into the mystery, all that is beyond our knowing. And take a moment to feel. Invite you to slowly close your eyes as we start to enter our meditative and contemplative space. And as we begin to enter the inner space, set your intention. Remind yourself for the sake of what that you're doing this practice. Why does it matter? Allow the practice of meditation become connected to something you care about. The world does not revolve around you. The stars and the planets, spinning through the ballroom of space, dance with one another quite outside your small life. You cannot hold gravity or seasons. Even air and water inevitably evade your grasp. Why not then let go? Why not then let go? You could move through time like a shark through water, neither restless nor ceasing, absorbed in and absorbing the native element. Why pretend you can do otherwise? The world comes in at every pore, mixes in your blood before breath releases you into the world again. Did you think the fragile boundary of your skin could build a wall? Listen, every molecule is humming its particular pitch. Of course, you are a symphony. Whose tune do you think the planets are singing as they dance? The world does not revolve around you. The stars and the planets, spinning through the ballroom of space, dance with one another, quite outside your small life. You cannot hold gravity or seasons. Even air and water inevitably evade your grasp. Why not then let go? Why not then let go? You could move through time like a shark through water, neither restless nor ceasing, absorbed in and absorbing the native element. Why pretend you can do otherwise? The world comes in at every pore, mixes in your blood before breath releases you into the world again. Did you think the fragile boundary of your skin could build a wall? Listen. Every molecule is humming its particular pitch. Of course, you are a symphony. Whose tune do you think the planets are singing as they dance? And as we close our practice today, take a moment to remind yourself, for the sake of what? Tie your intention of care to this meditation. And then on your next exhale, very slowly and very gently, begin to move your arms and legs. And then very slowly and very gently, begin to open your eyes and let the outside world come back in again. Take a moment to notice your mood right now, and if that's shifted since the beginning of our time together this morning. For me, I still feel that excitement and that enthusiasm, and I feel this settling and this groundedness at the same time. And notice what it is for you. So I just want to, again, thank you again for creating this virtual circle of intention and learning. So there's a way in which when we all meet here in the morning, we're holding this space of growth, learning, increasing our awareness, and this study of choice and these human freedoms. And so I'm very grateful for that, and grateful for all of you that are sitting together right now live, and grateful for everyone that will connect and watch later in the day and just be with you all in spirit. So tomorrow I'll be sharing reflections on the natural law of rhythm, and how, as we see those rhythms in nature, how does that apply to our lives, and then what character qualities start to emerge out of the embodiment and the acceptance of those natural laws with regard to our character and the cultivation of our conscience. So wishing you all a wonderful day, blessings on your day, and we'll see you tomorrow morning.